What's going on, everyone? How you doing? Ron here with Ronnie's Rundown. So in today's video, we got some crypto news, kidnappings, ransom, etc. If there's two things that I can teach you or tell you, the first thing would be don't flex your crypto online. Never tell anyone how much you owe, how much you made, etc. You don't want to show your face in public. Second thing is don't follow the same mistake that I did, especially when you get into crypto and you get into bull runs. You have a huge potential to make millions upon millions of dollars with starting with thousands, maybe even $100. I've seen it where someone has put in a couple $100, turned that into 2.3 million. You hear all these stories, and are they true? Yes. I come from a traditional background in investing into stocks, ETFs, etc. When I got into crypto, you believe it because once you've been in it and you've seen it, you see the potential, especially with these 4-year Bitcoin halving cycles. And when things start to heat up, not financial advice, but it's very easy to turn hundreds or even $1,000 into a million. So, anyways, this is a second mistake that I made here. And what I want to say is don't do what I did, which is this. So this is the Ethereum chart. The Ethereum chart, I think I bought it at about $100. Anyways, it went up to an all-time high of 4,800 US dollars. I put in $20,000. Anyways, I sold a little too early. That $20,000 that I purchased originally turned out to be 650,000, 750,000. What I should have done is actually sold a small portion of my bag and kept the moon bag to ride it all the way up and sell at different levels. But instead, I actually sold a big majority of it. I still made money, so I always say to some of the guys in my other group that I talk about crypto is profit, because a lot of people lose. Anyways, let's get into the ransom, the kidnapping stories right now. So this is a post by Star Platinum. It says, flexing crypto can ruin your life. People got robbed. Some never come back. Here are stories. So basically, I'm going to go into my stories, the ones that kind of stood out from me. Some of the gross things that happened. One of them is actually in the Philippines. So let me take you on to the first story that's trending now on Twitter. So here's a post from Obi-Wan, and he mentions in France, this marks the fourth attack on crypto entrepreneurs since the start of the year. Just a month ago, David Bland, co-founder of Ledger. So if you're not familiar with cold wallets, one of the co-founders of Ledger actually got kidnapped. But here's another one. So this morning, attempted kidnapping failed. France is starting to resemble Mexico, sliding into third world territory. So check this video out. Wow. When I look at that, these guys are savages. And that's why I say, one of the first rules is you don't tell anyone about your crypto, because eventually they're going to find you online, especially if you're an influencer or someone with stature, and, you show your face, whether it's media, news, YouTube, TikTok, etc. If you're flexing your crypto, don't do it. People are going to find out where you are, where you vacation. One thing that's very important, like let's say you do start to flex and you made a mistake, and you start posting live videos and backgrounds of where you are, people will actually find you in that country. Then you have a high risk of getting kidnapped, taken for ransom, etc. I'm going to get into the next story where this didn't end up so well. So the story in the video that you saw looked pretty good because they attempted to do a kidnap, but they were unsuccessful. And I think they just sustained minor injuries. So maybe not minor, but you could see the guy's head bleeding. So anyways, let's get into the next piece of news. This one actually happened in the Philippines. I remember reading it, and I was going to plan a trip to the Philippines, but I held back and I said, no, because I heard stories about, kidnappings, taking them to an island, etc., the Mindanao, and I was just like, no, thank you. I think I'll stay put in North America where I am. So let's get into this next piece of news. So this is the piece of news that stopped me from booking my flight to the Philippines. And you hear a lot of these stories, okay, especially in the Philippines. So $1.5 million USDT. So if you're not familiar with USDT, that's pretty much a stable coin. A stable coin in cryptocurrency means that its USDT token is equivalent to the pegged US dollar. So basically, they were asking for a ransom amount of $1.5 million, and this leaves Chinese entrepreneurs missing and dead. I'm going to get into some of this. So, they traveled to the Philippines after being invited to participate in a business venture. When I started digging more into this story and watching videos, and I'll summarize this. So, basically, you had two Chinese businessmen. They're doing business transactions, and uh, the people that were inviting them was apparently I heard it was like a young female that was very legit. Sent all the papers, the documents. Obviously, they were fake. They said, "Hey, we'd like to do a business transaction, potentially purchase your company, etc., for X amount of dollars." Made it very convincing to them, and so they eventually, told a story, sold a story, and pretty much said, "Okay, well, take a visit to our headquarters, etc." And maybe they got into a cab, and maybe it was a wrong cab, or they were followed, etc. But anyways, to make a long story short, they got kidnapped. Okay, they got kidnapped. They wanted $1.5 million in USDT. And apparently, the wife and the family started to panic. They flew over to the Philippines. They gave a portion of the ransom, which was 109,000. I think it says over here. Yeah, despite a ransom payment of 6 million pesos, approximately $109,000. The grim climax for the families came on June 27th when the police confirmed that both men were found dead near Manila. So, once I found out about this story, I actually started to do research on more ransoms in the Philippines, and that's when I said, okay, maybe I'll stay put. But like I have a lot of family in the Philippines, and pretty much they say, if you're low key and you're not flaunting, you're not flashing, you're okay. So maybe I'm just being too cautious, but it wasn't just based on this, but there's a lot of other countries that I want to visit before the Philippines. So the next story was a father of a crypto millionaire in France actually got his finger chopped off. So let me get into the details of this next story. So the headline of the story is Abducted Father of Crypto Millionaire Freed in French Police Raid. So the father of a crypto millionaire who was abducted in Paris on Thursday was freed by French police in a weekend raid, prosecutor said. The kidnappers chopped one of the father's fingers off, a source close to the investigation said, and had tried to force his son to pay ransom of between 5 to 7 million euros. So anyways, they were let go. They were found. They were okay. That was the worst thing that happened. So let me get into this other piece of news. And this was pretty recent. So, and this happened in Las Vegas, Nevada. So, Florida teens charged in $4 million Las Vegas crypto kidnapping. So, Florida teenagers are facing charges of kidnapping and stealing $4 million in cryptocurrency and NFTs. So, the teenagers actually got caught. And let me summarize this. They lured him into I think another part of just outside of Las Vegas, Nevada. I think it's called White Hills, Arizona. In the desert, they put a gun to his head and just said, "Hey, give me your keys. Pretty much your crypto keys are access to the person's wallet." And then they transferred the money to their account. But the thing that I don't understand, and if you're familiar with crypto, like I've been in crypto since 2017, when you do a wallet to wallet transaction, everything is on the blockchain and it's traceable unless they use mixers. Okay. They could use a degree of mixers, but I think authorities are now starting to gain access to these mixers. So anything that you do on chain is traceable. So let's say they got the person's money, they transfer it from one wallet to the next wallet. You're going to see that on chain, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever layer one chain that they use. And then eventually it goes to a bank or it gets dispersed into a mixer. Authorities could probably still hack into that, especially these high profile cases. And then eventually, in order to withdraw your crypto, it needs to go to a bank, or you do an OTC desk, but you could still follow those transactions because these wallet addresses are known, whether it's an OTC desk, a bank, etc. You will get caught. So I don't understand why people continue to do these kidnappings. Maybe they're trying to use mixers, but eventually they'll get caught. Anyways, this person ended up being okay. They didn't shoot him, and I think they just dumped him and left him and let him loose in the desert. So, anyways, the person walked 5 miles to the nearest gas station, called a friend, called the authorities, and eventually, to make a long story short, the three individuals got caught. They're teenagers, and the teenagers were actually 16 years old. That's the thing that kind of confuses me and makes me say wow, because my kids are older than 16, and when they were 16 they were nowhere close to think about doing these sort of things. Anyways, this is the last piece of news, and this is technology co-founder. I think he's got a net worth of $1 billion. So in France, so co-founder of French crypto startup freed after kidnapping. So that was a picture of David Belin. So like I mentioned, his network, he's valued at more than $1 billion, or maybe his firm is valued at more than $1 billion. And the worst thing that happened to him, his finger was cut off by his kidnappers, who demanded a hefty ransom. I think it was about 5 to 7 million euros. And he was freed the next day, and his girlfriend was found tied up in the boot trunk of a car in Paris suburb of Essonnes. So 9 suspects are under criminal investigation in that case, including suspected ringleader, a 26-year-old with a police record for previous kidnapping. So people are talking about kidnappings and, how Paris and France is starting to be the next Mexico, etc. But like I said, be careful. Don't post your stuff online. Don't tell people and brag how much you made, etc. Word is going to get around, and you don't want these things happening to you. So anyways, if you like the video, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and I'll see you in the next one.